Good afternoon. I just wanted to play the live Oversight Committee meeting regarding DOGE. Unfortunately, the Republicans have refused to have any representation or representative from DOGE to show up to the said Oversight Committee meetings on DOGE. But there is quite a bit of information that is being dropped about the things that have been going on, unbeknownst to many of us American citizens. One thing in particular that really shocked me that these young 17 to 24-year-old DOGE people who have access to every American's social security number, banking number, all of their private information have been taking screenshots of this information and have been sharing them with the Proud Boys. It has been alleged by one congressman here. So after hearing all of this, I decided to come live and let you guys hear it. Please hit the like button on your way in. If you find out something new that you didn't know, you are more than welcome to assist me in making my goals today. So if it's too fast, uh, give me a shout out so I know that it is too fast. So, with all that being said, thank you for being here. Please hit the like button. You can subscribe if you want to. The link to this video is in the description box. So let's get started with this DOGE meeting and see what your elected representatives have to say about oversight of this committee. I appreciate you all for being here. Okay, here we go.
Markup of two resolutions of the inquiry from committee Democrats. Democrats are attempting to undermine the critical work being done under President Trump to root out waste, fraud, and abuse across the federal government, all in an effort to save taxpayer dollars and make important programs work better, more efficient, and more effective for the American people. My Democrat colleagues claim their concerns are about process and careful vetting, but the truth is that they have never found an ounce of government fat that they're willing to trim. DOGE has a clear mission to end the rampant waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. At the Treasury Department, employees are cleaning the do not pay list to ensure taxpayer money does not end up in the wrong hands. Surely we can all agree that terrorists, criminals, fraudsters, dead people, they don't deserve taxpayer dollars. I'd like to remind my colleagues of the facts. DOGE employees are government employees. DOGE was authorized by the Senate confirmed Treasury Secretary to access certain Treasury payment systems on a read-only basis. Just last week, President Trump reiterated that department leadership has the final say over the makeup and activities of their agencies. This is not a case of DOGE employees running wild. The Treasury Department and White House even signed a memorandum of understanding preventing DOGE from accessing personal taxpayer data. A DOGE employee can only see taxpayer data that is disconnected from any personal identifiable information. This is the same level of access already granted to some academic researchers and IT professionals. At the IRS, DOGE is performing a similar mission of helping the agency get back to the basics. We must end the Biden administration's focus on auditing more middle-class Americans and shift back to administering the tax code. The agency has struggled for years to perform basic tasks like answering the phone. Every American who has interacted with the agency knows that. We don't have to tell them that. If DOGE can reform the IRS and make IT improvements to cut wait times, why is that a bad thing? My Democrat colleagues have also conveniently ignored longstanding concerns with the lack of guardrails surrounding IRS employees accessing the agency's data systems. As of 2017, the IRS had been unable to produce a complete list of every agent who has access to the integrated data retrieval system or individual master file systems. Where was the interest? Where was the interest from my Democrat colleagues in taxpayer security then? No hard evidence has been presented that accusations of illegal access to taxpayer information by DOGE employees are true are based in fact. On the contrary, during a recent Oversight subcommittee hearing, a witness testified there was no evidence for Democrat claims of illegal access or illegal disclosure of taxpayer data. All Democrats have the rumor and hearsay. For a party obsessed with, quote, misinformation, it appears they don't mind spreading their own. It seems Democrats are only interested in oversight when they are out of power. When Democrats are in power, they do nothing about taxpayer privacy. Instead, they are choosing to drum up false accusations. At its heart, this ROI is nothing more than a sad attempt by Democrats to throw sand in the gears of the Trump administration's important work to expose the waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. When Americans voted for President Trump, they sent a message that they want Washington to stop spending money on stuff that does nothing to serve the people. Every year, the federal government makes up to $521 billion in improper payments, according to a recent GAO study. No one can argue that we don't need to take serious and swift action to root out that waste. DOGE is fulfilling the mandate to rein in an unaccountable and bloated federal bureaucracy. This request for information is a nothing more than manufactured outrage that does nothing to serve the American people. I now recognize the ranking member from Massachusetts, Mr. Neal, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman. Today's markup of these two resolutions of inquiry is an important step in ensuring that Congress continues its important job of oversight over the executive branch. Let's be clear. What we are seeking today is transparency from the Trump administration and DOGE as to what they have done behind closed doors at agencies that carry sensitive personal information of every American taxpayer. We are looking for information. Passing these resolutions would ensure transparency in our government. Rejecting them would allow the executive branch to once again hide in the darkness from the American people this unchecked authority that they allege that they have. Let's state the obvious. There is nobody 300 years old receiving a Social Security check. It's important that members of Congress continue using every tool available to conduct necessary oversight of the Trump administration and for the good of the American people. It is both unclear and unsettling why DOGE continues to seek access to private confidential information at agencies across government behind closed doors while telling the American people something entirely different. No one should be rummaging through the confidential information of private citizens at any agency. Incidentally, if there's waste, fraud, and abuse, weed it out and get rid of it. Is there anybody on this side of the aisle that campaigned on the argument we're for more waste, fraud, and abuse? No chance. Privacy is next to liberty in our democratic system. Yet the president and his billionaire cabinet are jeopardizing that standard for their own power. And House Republicans haven't so much as raised an eyebrow about what's happening. Tens of thousands of people in the Veterans Administration being laid off? What has happened without any questions being raised by our colleagues on the other side? Americans should know that every time that their health is threatened and well-being of the American people is not being taken up by our Republican colleagues, they refuse to even raise the alarm. Let me applaud Ranking Member Doggett and Ranking Member Larson for their steadfast leadership in holding DOGE accountable and protecting the American people's private data. What we have seen over the last 7 weeks is unacceptable. Unaccountable and unelected people with no experience in the systems of government are rifling through citizens' data. Under the false guise of waste, fraud, and abuse, they are seeking to dismantle institutions. Let me tell you how this will work. People won't answer the phone because of these layoffs, and the Republicans will say this demonstrates the government doesn't work, after they went along with the layoffs of not allowing people to answer the phone. President Trump and Elon Musk should be answering the questions that members of Congress have, legitimately so, which we would have done with any other executive. This oversight is a fundamental responsibility of Congress, and Democrats are the ones that are going to step up, and we should be having our Republicans assist us. In fact, yesterday, our colleagues stripped this body of one of the most fundamental constitutional responsibilities, oversight of the executive on trade. The courts have spoken. They want limits on DOGE. They want to make sure that this information is not tampered with. Yet, as we have seen recently, DOGE representatives won't take no for an answer. The 24-year-olds are rummaging through all of your personal information. Now they're attempting to use a database at HHS as a backdoor entrance. Trump and his allies have made clear that the Americans' private and sensitive information is theirs to harvest whenever they want. All of this while our Republican colleagues remain silent, never asking one question. They're defending this evasive assault on privacy. For years, our colleagues have disliked Social Security. President Bush attempted to privatize Social Security. Now the argument is if we just lay off those employees because of inefficiency, so when those calls are not answered, they once again will blame Social Security for being inefficient. How about the idea that the richest man in the world called Social Security a Ponzi scheme and nobody on the other side raised a word? When you hear Ponzi scheme, it implies an illicit, illegal activity. Tens of millions of Americans, since Mr. Roosevelt signed that document, have benefited from an earned benefit. We are fighting to protect 70 million Social Security beneficiaries from an out-of-control executive branch, and we intend to protect the data of every American. The American people deserve answers as to what's happening to Social Security. Treasury and every other government agency has found itself in DOGE's crosshairs. You need to speak up on the other side. Ask some questions about where this is all headed. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. The committee will now proceed to consideration of HRes 127. Without objection, the measure will be considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Does anyone wish to strike the last word? Mr. Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Though I must say your rash and misleading statement indicates your desperation in protecting DOGE from the least bit of accountability. You don't realize that there is a big difference between truth and truth social. It's called reality. And the reality is a rampage has been going on through our government. All we are asking for in this resolution is truth, facts. There is nothing in this resolution that should slow the effort, if it is legitimate, by DOGE for a moment. DOGE has confused billions and millions. It double counts its body count, and it expects us to accept on face value, as you and your Republican colleagues have, every word of propaganda that they spout. Today, we are concerned that Americans' right to privacy is under attack on multiple fronts. The only privacy in which this administration and you have shown the slightest interest is the privacy of Elon Musk and his Department of Government Evisceration, DOGE, or more accurately DOGE, since it dodges all forms of accountability. So thick has been the veil of secrecy surrounding DOGE that Trump's attorneys actually represented in federal court that Elon Musk was not directing it. Elon's multiple tweets and President Trump's recent recognition of him during his congressional address make clear that it is indeed the unelected billionaire who's calling all the shots. Today's resolution of inquiry is unusual because these are unusual times and unusual events. This resolution represents a very modest effort to penetrate the secrecy and determine the extent of the administration's invasion of the privacy of just about every person in America. Musk has accessed and is attempting to access the personal and confidential information of our fellow citizens without our knowing the full extent of what data he's gotten to, what he's copied, how the data is or will be used by him, and the names, clearance levels, and the training of the individuals who access the data. That's the kind of facts that we seek today, not to slow any legitimate effort to reduce whatever waste, fraud, and abuse they can find, though we have yet to see a single case of fraud referred for prosecution anywhere, because fraud is a new term used by this administration to simply mean anything they don't like the reasonable administration of the Social Security and Internal Revenue System, like corrupt, which is applied to anyone who has the courage to stand up to this administration. What we have is an extreme breach of privacy. The resolution, which I am offering on behalf of every Democratic member of this committee, simply asks for documents relating to DOGE's access to and usage of, first, the Treasury payment systems, second, the confidential taxpayer information protected by federal law, and third, the screenshots taken of Treasury payment systems data by a member of DOGE. Tell me how any of that slows a legitimate investigation. No, it does allow a little accountability. It allows the public to know how much damage they've already incurred. This resolution, of course, would be unnecessary had this committee shown the slightest interest, the very slightest interest in protecting privacy and demanding even a smidgen of accountability for DOGE. 6 weeks ago, Speaker Johnson committed to a hearing before our committee on DOGE, but he obviously had not received permission from his boss, Donald Trump, to do that. At the oversight hearing, neither Musk nor anyone from DOGE or the administration showed up to answer a single question. And you're right, a witness testified she had no evidence of any wrongdoing here because she had no evidence of anything about this and was not associated with DOGE or the administration. And of course, other than a few words of praise from Musk and Republican plans to declare his birthday a national holiday and carve his face onto Mount Rushmore, the majority has offered nothing but silence as Mr. Trump followed Mr. Musk's directive to fire more veterans than any president in American history and continue to seek highly sensitive private information. One would expect that Republicans who want a legitimate investigation of waste, fraud, and abuse would not leave that witness chair empty this morning. It is empty. It has remained empty, as has their commitment to any responsible oversight over this administration. This committee is supposed to be a guardian of sensitive taxpayer information. Instead, it has appeased Mr. Musk and given him access to anything he desires. I yield back.
Additional members wish to strike the last word. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a little mystified to hear you say that this is all about, quote, stuff that does nothing to serve the American people. I don't believe that's what this is about at all. This is about transparency. The stuff that you claim doesn't serve the American people, we're concerned about, like Social Security, veterans benefits, and Medicare. These all concern the American people. And the American people are fed up with this administration and DOGE assessing our government's payment system and taxpayer data. It's understandable why they're worried. The Treasury and DOGE has refused to answer our letters, our calls, and our requests for information. If you've done nothing wrong and you've got nothing to hide, then respond to our requests. And better yet, come before this committee. Don't leave the chair empty. Testify. My constituents, the American people, and all of us should be concerned with what DOGE and its leader, Elon Musk, is doing with our data. Elon Musk receives billions of dollars in government contracts and now has access to the federal payment system and has seen sensitive taxpayer data. To date, he has not filed a financial disclosure. He's not disclosed conflicts of interest, nor given up control of his companies that are receiving billions of dollars in government contracts. We have no assurances that he's not using this information for his own personal gain. In fact, Mr. Musk has already used this administration for his own benefit. DOGE has already targeted the Department of Labor, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, USAID, USDA, EPA, Federal Elections Commission, Department of Interior, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, Securities and Exchange Commission, and the Office of Government Ethics, all of whom have been investigating Musk or one of his businesses. And I'd like to ask unanimous consent to add to the record this report from the Judiciary Committee regarding these issues.
Without objection.
Thank you. DOGE is not about going after waste, fraud, and abuse. If it were, they wouldn't have fired all of the inspectors general. That's where you start the investigation to find the waste, fraud, and abuse. Instead, they're using their time to pass a bill that critical programs like Medicaid and extends tax cuts to the top 1% of the American people. My Republican colleagues seem tired of hearing from the American people who are complaining about Elon Musk, President Trump, and DOGE, because from refusing you see this because they're refusing to call the secretary and Mr. Musk before this committee. You know this because their leadership are telling members to stop holding town hall meetings, refusing to meet with your constituents who are concerned about these issues. I've never seen such a thing in my entire time in this office. To my Republican colleagues, this problem will not just go away on its own. However, it can go away if you vote for this resolution and demand answers from this administration. The American people may have voted for change, but they did not vote for chaos. They did not vote to end Medicaid. They did not vote to fire more veterans than have ever been fired before in the history of this country. They did not vote to end or greatly reduce Social Security. I urge my colleagues to vote for this resolution, and let's get disclosure, let's get transparency, and let's get witnesses in this committee to tell us what they're doing and answer our questions on behalf of our constituents and the American people. I yield back.
Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is indeed a sad morning, very sad morning, when this committee, the oldest and most continuous in the Congress, neglects its responsibility and essentially holds this hearing today to block any further discussion. The men and women on this committee are good people. They're honest and caring people. And that's why I do not understand why you would relegate this committee to no longer being of significance and resort to saying you will do whatever Elon Musk and Donald Trump tell you to do. Where's the independence of the committee? Where's the legislature? We're an equal branch of government. And you start off with a blather, and yet look at the empty seats here. Where's Elon Musk? I'm sure he's a genius and is a very credible person because of the wealth he's accumulated. But that does not put him above the law or the responsibility to come before this committee in this Congress. If he's so great, if these plans and all the fraud and abuse that he found are so evident, why isn't he here explaining it? You know why. Because he's out to privatize Social Security, He's been on television the last couple of days talking exactly about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and what he intends to do. Privatize it. The American people, some of them may have been born at night, but not last. Because Elon Musk thinks that this is the best thing to do. President Trump has called Social Security a scam. Elon Musk, as the chairman, as Mr. Neal said, called it a Ponzi scheme. Ask that of the people in your district. Ask that, Mr. Smith, of the more than 198,000 people in your district who rely on Social Security, and you won't even let the person who's planning to privatize it, who's telling the big lie in front of everyone, in bold as he possibly can, saying, this is what we're going to do. The Congress is in our back pocket. We don't even have to come before them and testify because we control the House, we control the Senate, and we control the presidency. And it's the tyranny of the executive. It's why these resolutions were first adopted back in 1789, because the founding fathers knew that the executive branch does not have total authority over the legislature unless you have a willing party that says, no, we're going to do exactly what you tell us to do, Mr. Musk and Mr. President. It doesn't matter to our constituents. It doesn't matter how much money they are not going to receive. We're not even going to tell them the truth about what's going to happen to them. And every single one of these districts where they're being shut down and their personnel, and as Mr. Neal said, then after you cut and eliminate the people, say the agency isn't responding accordingly. No other agency operates for under less than 1%. With that, they administer to over 70 million people in the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and children. Shame! Shame! Can't bring people in front of this body. If he's right, if they're so good, if they're so just, why aren't they here telling the American people about it? They're not, because you know the truth. It's about privatization. I yield back.
No time to yield. Mr. Arrington?
I can hardly sit here. I was hoping to just let my Democrat colleagues sound off this morning, get through their one-act plays, but I can't. I can't sit here and listen to this grandstanding. They wear their armor of indignation proudly, but we know what's underneath that. And I hate to question the motives of my colleagues, but this is we have touched a nerve, Mr. Chairman, and we have entered the inner sanctum of the Democrats' temple. And I think that holy grail is the government and their unionized government employees. And if you get anywhere near it, this is the reaction you're going to get. My friend said they didn't vote for these things. They didn't vote for this deep cleaning in the bureaucracy. They didn't vote for the kind of rooting out of waste and fraud. But they say that with a false narrative and with fear mongering for Medicaid beneficiaries. And they try to scare. No, sir, I got to finish this. They're trying to scare our seniors and scare the most vulnerable. That's a long-standing tactic. But the American people didn't vote for transgender operas in Colombia. But where's the indignation on that? I haven't heard a single person talk about that. What about the transgender comic books and the DEI musicals in Ireland and all this absurd and insulting example after example of just complete and utter wasting the taxpayer dollar? The GAO, the Government Accountability Office, that's a government entity. So you ought to bow down to that authority as well and accept it hook, line, and sinker for their data and statement on fraud, which is up to $5 trillion over the 10-year window. $5 trillion. Where is the outrage on all of that? I've never heard it, not one time. This is, I hear about the unelected billionaires because you all love class warfare. You love to divide people by race and gender and class. That is the MO. I mean, God, I love you guys as people, but your party's broken and bankrupt, and that's why the taxpayers put this president in office and gave us unilateral unified Republican leadership because they want us to make sure that their tax dollars are protected and that they're being spent wisely and that we act as fiduciaries and that the people who were intended to get benefits from these programs are getting them, but not illegal immigrants and not people that are not qualified. I see the list you're holding up. Enough with the theater. Where is the outrage? Are you not insulted by this list? You want me to read this list? You want me to go through the same list of indigenous people, inclusive justice, primary literacy, female empowerment, personalized 3D avatar tools for gender identities? This is stupid. This is stupid. Mr. Chairman, reclaiming my time.
You got your time.
Where was the concern for conflicts of interest and abuse of power when the IRS leadership and the special prosecutors from the Biden DOJ were obstructing the investigation into the Hunter Biden scheme? And your president said, I don't know anything about it, never been involved. And we knew that wasn't true, and we discovered it wasn't. But where was the drive and the passion that I see from you, all my colleagues, on that issue and the transparency or lack thereof for the last 2 or 3 years? I never see this until we're talking about the tip to tail audit of the federal government to root out wasteful spending and act as fiduciaries on behalf of the taxpayers. It's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable. But I think it's on such display today that the American people in their good judgment are reading right through it just like I am. And again, if you want to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, you're making a good case to do that to the American people. They're on our side on this issue. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Davis.
I move to strike the last word, Chairman. I ask unanimous consent to submit for the record this Democratic letter to Secretaries Bennett, Bassett, and Kennedy on the national new hires. And I yield 30 seconds to Representative Larson.
Without objection, so ordered.
To just say to my friend over there, I never heard him mention once Social Security. That's what we're talking about. I never heard you mention at all the 135,000 people in your district that rely on this. Have you told them about Elon Musk's plan? Have you told them about all the fraud and abuse that they're receiving? Is it fraud and abuse in your district that for the 95,000 retirees, for the 14,000 disabled workers, for the 10,000 parents, for the 4,800 spouses, for the 9,000 children? That's what we're talking about. Social Security and the lack of your willingness to bring before us the person who has said they are going to privatize it and therefore cut and hurt these benefits of these individuals. Tell the truth. If you're for privatization, put your plan out there and vote on it.
Reclaiming my time. Mr. Chairman, President Trump allowed the biggest federal data breach in history when he allowed Elon Musk and his hackers to steal Americans' extremely private financial and health information from the Treasury Department. We don't know if Mr. Musk will illegally stop one's Social Security, tax, or Medicare payments. We don't know if he'll sell our information to the highest bidder or delay government contract payments or grants to his competitors or people he dislikes. We don't know if the Musk hackers with histories of racism who took screenshots of private information and shared it with the Proud Boys. When Treasury erected some barriers to DOGE, hackers waltzed into HHS to get the tax data from the child support data sets. This committee has an obligation of oversight, yet my Republican colleagues objectively refuse to exercise their constitutional obligation to ensure the executive branch follows the law. The Republican failure to protect our democracy, congressional authority, and American privacy is beyond alarming. This Republican oversight failure is coupled with the intense efforts to undermine tax enforcement for the wealthy. When the House passed CRR, the Republicans will champion a $41.8 billion rescission of funds to modernize the Internal Revenue Service and make sure wealthy tax cheats don't pay what they owe. The Trump administration is doing irreparable harm to our country and citizens by accessing the Treasury payment systems. And Democrats today are demanding that the Republicans step up and do their jobs, demand the answers from the administration owed to the American people. After the CR, $41.8 billion would have been rescinded. Public Law 11805, $1.4 billion. FY24 Omni, $20.2 billion. FY25 CR, $20.2 billion. Sum total of $41.8 billion taken from the American people in a real kind of way. Mr. Chairman, this is unfair, unethical, and unconstitutional. I yield back.
Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to commend Representative Doggett for leading this resolution of inquiry regarding DOGE's access to the Treasury payment systems and confidential taxpayer information. The president has allowed Elon Musk to run rampant in federal agencies without any congressional oversight. Particularly egregious, and why we're all here today, is his access to all Treasury Department payments, including payments of Social Security and Medicare benefits. Congress can't sit idly by as our democratic institutions are dismantled by a billionaire from within. It's our duty to find out exactly what private and sensitive information is in the hands of Elon Musk and his Doge bros. I'm calling on my Republican colleagues to join us in this inquiry. Stand up for your constituents. Don't hide and refuse to hold town halls and to be accountable to the people who elected you to serve them. It's critical to ensure the integrity of Treasury's payment system and, more importantly, the privacy of Social Security, Medicare, and taxpayer information. President Trump's surrendering control of the government to Elon Musk is a direct attack on our democracy. It is Congress's responsibility. It is a congressional responsibility to exert its oversight authority to prevent this constitutional overreach. The presidency is the most powerful position in the world, but a president without congressional oversight is just a king. And we don't have kings in a democracy. This shouldn't be a partisan fight. It's a fight for our democracy. It's a fight for our free and democratic institutions. Democrats are outraged, but we need our Republican colleagues to join us and stand up for the rule of law. You guys talk a great game when it comes to rule of law, but when it comes to exerting Congress's power as a co-equal branch of government, you guys are hiding in the shadows. Stand up for the people who elected you to come here and represent their interests. But if you won't even face them in a town hall and listen to them, should we be surprised that you don't want to exert that power to hold this administration accountable? I yield back the balance of my time.
Ms. Del Bene.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word. My constituents are confused and afraid, and rightly so. They want answers to very basic questions. They want to know why Donald Trump has given Elon Musk and his DOGE team access to extremely sensitive, private, personal data that's supposed to be protected by the Treasury Department and the Social Security Administration. They want to know what Musk's unvetted and unqualified acolytes are doing with their Social Security numbers, their home addresses, their income levels, and confidential medical records that they were required to submit when applying for disability. They want to know how a president could support these unlawful breaches into the databases of taxpayers and Social Security recipients, which puts their livelihoods at risk. And as bad as that is, there's so much we don't know. That's why we're asking Republicans to join us and vote for these resolutions of inquiry. This is pretty simple. They ask very simple questions like, what confidential taxpayer information has Elon Musk and DOGE accessed? Why is this controversial? We are a co-equal branch of government. We are in charge of oversight. If you feel like there's no concerns here, then why wouldn't you want that information to be out in the public for people to be able to ask questions and get a response? This should be easy if you're not concerned. Instead, Republicans are hiding, and that's why we're sitting here at this moment. You know, before Congress, I was the director of the Washington State Department of Revenue, and so I know firsthand how important it is to protect sensitive information from bad actors in order to maintain public trust in government. And now the public wants to know if our government is the bad actor, illegally sharing personally sensitive data that could result in your identity being stolen or your medical records being leaked. You know, I have been pushing for nearly a decade to pass a national data privacy law to put people back in charge of their data and protect personal information. What is more personal than your Social Security number or your medical history or your financial history? So, and especially when we look at medical history, we've seen Republicans going after women seeking reproductive care. People are worried about healthcare being cut, targeting those with pre-existing conditions or whoever else they want to target next. Of course, people are concerned about how information will be used. We should be trying to strengthen privacy laws, not undermine existing laws by letting random DOGE staffers breach existing law by accessing private taxpayer data. This should be a bipartisan effort to get answers to questions, and it's incredibly disappointing to see Republicans trying to avoid even the most basic questions from being asked. And as Congresswoman Sanchez suggested too, maybe not surprising if folks aren't even willing to have a town hall and listen to their constituents. So it's important that we ask these questions, and it's important that we get answers. And I yield back.
Mr. Smucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's fascinating this morning to hear the feigned outrage of the Democrats today. It's as if they haven't heard the message of this previous election, like it never occurred. I can tell you, in my district, what the American people wanted was to prioritize America, prioritize the American people over the bureaucracy, over the massive federal government. Do you know today that government spending is over 1/3 of GDP? This is what the Democrats are defending. Over 3 million employees in the federal government alone, not including state and local. And the fallacies that have been brought up here today, Social Security being privatized, no one has mentioned that. In fact, the president has said he wants to protect Social Security. Look at his record in his first 4 years. No, I will not yield. Look at his record in the first 4 years. He did nothing to change Social Security in any way. And he said multiple times he's going to protect Social Security, going to protect Medicare. And I can tell you, every Republican on this side of the aisle believes and agrees that we should protect the vulnerable among us. We should protect those programs for individuals who truly need them, who have been paying into the system. So it's bizarre. It's outrageous, the kind of things that they've been saying. Now, let's talk a little bit about Musk. And Mr. Larson in particular knows that Social Security will be bankrupt in 9 years or 10 years. At that point, no, I'm not going to yield. You had your time. You had your time. Will be in 9 or 10 years, projections show that what is owed in Social Security will be more than we're taking in. So you ought to be extremely happy if we're finding waste in the system. Because every dollar of waste in Social Security, in Medicare, in every other program, every dollar of waste and fraud is a dollar that is available to the people, to the recipients who deserve that service. So, you know, many presidents have tried this. We've seen under the Clinton years, they trimmed back the federal workforce. Nixon talked about it. But this is finally a president who's willing to take on the bureaucracy and really make a difference. 3 million employees. You don't think that we can find some ways to trim? And you know, we've heard reports here, there's waste all over the place, there's fraud. And what Mr. Musk is finding could impact our deficit in a big way. The American people know that we're bankrupt. The American people know we're bankrupt. Just think of this. This year, we're spending $7 trillion and we're taking in $5 trillion. You're all you're arguing to keep that. If we don't change our course, we're going to see a sovereign debt crisis, and every American is going to be.
Will the gentleman yield?
No, I'm not going to yield.
You voted to.
You have yesterday. You'll have your time. I'm not yielding. We will have a sovereign debt crisis if we don't change course. And where we should start is exactly what the president is doing: root out every bit of waste and fraud that we can find. That's where we should start. It might make an amazing difference. This is why, by the way, I think you're on the wrong side of this. I think the American people are going to see the kind of waste and fraud. They support this. Why do you think today the majority of the American people support what Elon Musk is doing? Why do you think today the majority of the American people support what the president is doing? And one other thing, you keep talking about him. He should be right here. You can follow what he's doing. He's doing interviews. He's got DOGE.gov. He's uncovering what he's doing. This is not someone who is doing this in the dark. He's being very open about what is happening. So again, I think you're on the wrong side of this. The American people side with us today. They sided with us in this previous election, and you keep this up, they're going to be siding with us with many elections to come. I yield back.
Thank you. I will make sure that whenever we give 5 minutes to each member, it's honored without disruption. When a member says they do not yield, do not continue to go after the member and try to take away their time. Ms. Chu.
I move to strike the last word. In the absence of any strength from Republicans and delusional statements about access to Musk, and with Representative Doggett's leadership, Ways and Means Democrats are stepping in to do what the majority on this committee has refused to do: fulfill our constitutional responsibility to conduct actual oversight and finally get answers from the Trump administration about what exactly Elon Musk and DOGE accessed, altered, downloaded, or used when they were improperly given access to Treasury's payment systems and taxpayers' protected confidential information. Now, Representative Moore and I tried to get answers directly from the Speaker and the Treasury Secretary. We then urged the Speaker and the Chairman to hold a proper hearing in this committee to get answers from Musk and Treasury officials. And Ways and Means Democrats have sent letters and introduced amendments to demand answers from the administration. But so far, Republicans have refused to act. This resolution of inquiry is only necessary because in the face of extremely troubling facts, Republicans have pretended not only that there's nothing wrong, but that Congress has no right to even understand what Musk and DOGE are doing. It is astounding to think that Republicans have been so unquestionably submissive and obedient to Trump and Musk that they cannot even bring themselves to even ask questions about their actions and whether it invades taxpayer confidentiality, let alone question the firing of many thousands of federal employees, including 80,000 from the Veterans Administration, and the firings of inspector generals who are to have oversight over all our federal departments. I remind my colleagues that it was just last year that Democrats joined you in passing legislation to increase penalties for violating taxpayer confidentiality. It is the height of hypocrisy not to support this resolution of inquiry. But Dems will not be submissive and obedient. Democrats are demanding answers on behalf of all our constituents who are also demanding to know what Elon Musk has done with our confidential information. I urge support for both resolutions of inquiry under consideration today, and I would yield the balance of my time to Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Congresswoman Chu. I just want to point out that, the righteous indignation that we heard from some of my colleagues on the Republican side of the dais just amazes me. This idea that nothing was done in the dark in all of this. For crying out loud, you all heard the guy say that people 300 years old are collecting Social Security. That statement is made by someone who's absolutely full of prunes. The one gentleman who was referring to all this waste, fraud, and abuse is the chair of the Budget Committee. If there's all this waste, fraud, and abuse, why haven't you guys ferreted that out and brought it forward? You've been in charge for the last 3 years. The time I'm up pretty high on this dais, so I've been around a while. 74% of the time that I've been in Congress, I've been in the minority. So are you saying that because there's all this waste, fraud, and abuse, you guys have been asleep at the switch? And I'll guarantee you, none of my constituents and none of your constituents voted the way they voted to end Medicare, Medicaid, to privatize Social Security, to fire thousands of veterans from the good jobs and the good work that they're doing. That is just absurd to think that that's the case. If there is waste, fraud, and abuse, we should be working together to find it. The inspectors generals most certainly should not have been fired. They're the ones on the point of the spear who were charged with doing that. This empty witness seat in front of us speaks volumes towards the insincerity that we're seeing today. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back and now recognize Ms. Moore for 5 minutes. Strike last word.
I move to strike the last word, Mr. Chairman.
You recognize.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank my colleagues. And so I don't want to feign any outrage here. I just want to keep the main thing the main thing. What we're talking about here is a resolution of Mr. Dawkins that I co-sponsored is a resolution of inquiry regarding the accessing of our private taxpayer data by an unelected, someone who is actually ineligible to run for president, multi-billionaire who's had no Senate confirmation, no oath of office, no ethics training or anything that he's taken, and he has violated Section 6103. Now, I've been on this committee long enough to really see the outrage that we have had on this committee about violations of Section 6103. And I just want to remind you, Mr. Chairman, that we were so outraged that we increased the penalties. Don't forget, we increased penalties on violations of Section 6103. And so we simply are making an inquiry as to what this man is doing with our data, why he's accessing it, and that's really a fair question. And what do we find ourselves facing when we do this. All these non sequiturs, you know, trans people and what money is spent on condoms and, I mean, if you don't, undocumented immigrants, that's what we do for a living. We voted, we've got very qualified, capable people on the Appropriations Committee on your side, who can go through, budget, account by account and eliminate what you call waste, fraud, and abuse. It's a non sequitur because that has nothing to do whether that's true or not. If someone is getting a Social Security check and they're 300 years old, that's a terrible thing. But it doesn't have anything to do with an ineligible person accessing our data. And so I just want to make sure that we stay on the subject. We're not talking about trans people today, or the 0.002% of people in America who apparently are trans people. We're not talking about undocumented immigrants. And we certainly are not talking about anointing an unelected, naturalized citizen, not born here in America, citizen who's a billionaire, to be able to march in with federal marshals, even at the direction, and to literally threaten people out of their seats to access our information. So now, if this is not a crime that has been committed, which is what I think it is, then we should have Mr. Musk sitting there explaining to us how going through our Social Security information, our taxpayer information, is going to rid us of the problem of trans people. How it's going to solve, how it's going to reconcile, the majority party's concerned about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's the plan for excluding people through going through our personal information? It's a non sequitur. And I would yield the last 55 seconds to my good friend, Mr. Larson.
Mr. Larson is recognized.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. And let me say, having both chaired the Social Security Subcommittee and now being the ranking member, I get upset because of what's happening to the American people. These are good and decent people on both sides of the aisle. But fundamentally, you're telling me that there is no obligation to have the man who's been placed in charge of finding $2 trillion in cuts, who has said publicly on more than one occasion that yes, 70% of the budget is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and defense, and that's what we're going after. Only one of those areas has a trust fund of $2,700,000,000.
Gentleman's time has expired.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Kelly to strike the last word.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to yield my time to Mr. Smucker.
Mr. Smucker is recognized.
Just like to make a point in regards to access to taxpayer information. I would assume that every employee of the IRS has access to taxpayer information. I would assume, particularly those who are auditing accounts, are going to have access to some taxpayer information. And I just want to remind folks listening that the Democrats just last year were advocating to hire tens of thousands more, maybe as many as 80,000 additional auditors, or at least people in the IRS, all of who have had access to taxpayer information. We're talking maybe 100 people here who have potential access to taxpayer information.
Will the gentleman yield?
And I want to remind one other thing. There was a leak of taxpayer information, a massive leak. And we're learning that may have been 450,000 taxpayers' information or more. And I didn't hear a lot of outrage from Democrats because it matched their political narrative that, it was the taxpayer information of some of the highest income earners. And I heard a lot of Democrats celebrating, maybe not here, but a lot of Democrats across the country celebrated that an independent contractor who did have access to taxpayer information released that information to the American public. Where was the outrage we're hearing today then? Where was the outrage then? I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Boyle is recognized to strike the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would encourage everyone, not just the members of this committee, but everyone who is watching and listening to read this resolution. It'll only take you a couple minutes. It's just 2 pages. This is about as straightforward a resolution as it gets. I honestly don't understand why anyone would vote against this. It is providing all of us necessary information about what exactly has been accessed. That's important information if you care about privacy, if you care about security. And frankly, I would think that if those who are involved with Mr. Musk's effort are proud of the work they're doing, I would think they would want this information to be out. Why wouldn't we want to give taxpayers and all the American people transparency? Why wouldn't we want a full airing of exactly what has been accessed? The logs, the documents, our private information. I'll save any comments about Social Security until later when we're on that resolution, but specifically in Treasury, they have access to our Social Security numbers, date of birth, home address, our full employment history, salary. If some 21-year-old frat bro working for Elon Musk has access to that, I would rather like to know it. I think the folks who I represent, 765,000 of them in the city of Philadelphia, absolutely want to know who is seeing their most private data and most private information. I think that that transcends whether one is a Democrat, Republican, independent, voter, or non-voter. I think, frankly, it is just common sense. And at the very least, this is something that all of us as fellow Americans should be able to vote and provide that level of transparency to the American people. And those who don't want to provide that level of transparency, it raises questions. Why don't they want that transparency? I have a few further things I could say, but I want to yield to my good friend and colleague, Mr. Doggett of Texas, the 2.5 minutes remaining.
Well, thank you very much. We've heard a lot of huffing and puffing. We've heard distraction to foreign aid and many other issues, but not one of the Republicans who have challenged this resolution have given us any reason, any explanation as to why Musk needs every American's taxpayer data, their banking, their Social Security records, and who knows what else. These federal databases that the Musketeers have sought access to even contain sensitive information on child custodial arrangements that are used in administering the child tax credit. And so while tax season is underway, American taxpayers particularly deserve some answers. And I've been getting calls from people in Austin expressing concern and suggesting that they want to delay the filing of their tax return this year because they're not sure that they want an unelected billionaire going through it and invading their privacy on some illegitimate fishing expedition. A number of these constituents have questioned whether they can be sure that their information is safe. Some are holding off on filing, and in fact, they're not alone, because so far this tax filing season, about 2 million fewer Americans have filed their taxes compared to the same period last year. The young genius hackers that Musk hired as Musketeers had their own website hacked last month, raising questions about their ability to protect this data. I'm particularly pleased that Mr. Smucker mentioned Mr. Nixon. You know, we have had a previous criminal in the White House, and his name was Richard Nixon. And because of his lawlessness, this Congress reacted, finally, belatedly, to the Watergate events. And one of the things that Congress did, because a lawless Nixon administration attempted to weaponize the IRS against its opponents, was to pass a new law. And it's that new law that's being disregarded. It required that taxpayer data be treated as strictly confidential, not subject to inspection or disclosure, except in the very most limited circumstances. A penalty of 5 years in federal prison could apply. And the Congress also passed the Privacy Act of 1974, both in reaction to a lawless president. Now we have lawless invasion of those records again. And it's incumbent on this committee to fulfill its responsibilities rather than to yield all of its power to Musk and Trump.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize Mr. Byer to strike the last word.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized.
The resolution of inquiry is simple. Support it, and you honor the transparency Elon Musk promised us. Oppose it, and you believe that the activity Elon Musk is conducting should remain hidden from the American public. The activity where he and his team of special government employees gain access to sensitive databases. This is one of the concerns I'm hearing in an uproar from my constituents, including conservatives and Republicans. There's absolutely no reason DOGE should be trying to access Treasury payment systems and confidential taxpayer information without permission, without approval from the American public and Congress. I'm deeply concerned that this conduct is breaking many laws that Congress has put in place. I led an investigation earlier this week with my colleagues Jamie Raskin and Maxwell Frost to the Office of Government Ethics, inquiring about the potential criminal exposure of the volunteers and the employees of DOGE, to ensure that those individuals know that their ethical and legal responsibilities under the law, particularly conflicts of interest. We know that the statute of limitations is up to 5 years, so that's past the length of this administration. And violations can lead to criminal penalties of up to 5 years in prison with additional financial penalties. And I'm deeply concerned that these violations are happening left and right. And those fears could be assuaged with the transparency that has been promised to us. And by the way, who is doing it? Has Marco Elez been rehired to continue working on Treasury payments? You can't tell me that a government efficiency requires self-described racists access to government's most private information. I urge everyone to support this resolution and provide much-needed transparency into why and how Musk has sought Treasury payment information in America's sensitive data. If no laws have been broken, there's nothing to hide. And the defining feature of this 119th Congress has been his abdication of responsibility, running in fear from our constitutional authority on trade, on appropriations, on national security. My number one question for my constituents is, when will your Republican colleagues step up and do their jobs? We should not continue that today. Mr. Chairman, I yield the balance of my time to Congressman Doggett.
Thank you very much. So let's turn to the multiple efforts of DOGE to invade Americans' privacy. Republicans cannot justify and have not justified for 1 second this morning why that invasion occurred. And they refuse to bring anyone. They leave the witness chair empty for us to inquire regarding what happened here and how much damage was done. So we proceed without full information, but what we do know is that first, Mr. Musk sought tax information that is housed in the Treasury's Bureau of Fiscal Services. And when the former nonpartisan top career official at the Treasury Department, a trusted guardian of Americans' privacy under both Republican and Democratic presidents for more than 35 years, when he rebuffed Musk and said he wanted to protect the privacy as he had done for 3 decades, he was pushed aside. While administration officials initially testified that DOGE was granted read-only, they were just going to read and invade our privacy that way, the sensitive data, they were later forced to admit that the Musketeers had both read and write. That is, they can make changes in the sensitive databases related to federal tax returns, Social Security benefits, supplemental Social Security income benefits, and pay for veterans. Not satisfied with this temporary access to American families' financial information, Musk then came for some of the even more highly guarded taxpayer data that's contained in the IRS Integrated Data Retrieval System. This is a system to which access is denied to political officials, even the IRS commissioner, the taxpayer advocate, and the IRS chief information officer. And I want to respond directly to you, Mr. Smucker, about that and your claim that there were hundreds of additional people that we wanted to have go into all this data. What we wanted was to enforce the tax laws. We wanted the tax cheats to be brought to justice. You all took the cop off the beat. But let me make this point. The data that Musk and the Musketeers are seeking, that they perhaps got exposed, is data that is so sensitive that even the IRS commissioner is not entitled to see it. That is protected data, protected until this happened. And the claim that because some of it that they got was anonymous would not get into the privacy was rebutted by Mr. Barthold when I questioned him as the head of the Joint Committee on Taxation, an independent, nonpartisan group, who explained to us how that data could be used when Mr. Musk and his AI and his minions and his Musketeers get together and compare these databases and invade our privacy. We must adopt this resolution. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Now recognize Mr. Evans to strike the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this conversation led by Mr. Doggett.
The gentleman could speak into the microphone.
This conversation led by Mr. Doggett. I think he needs to know. So I'd like to yield my time to Mr. Doggett.
Thank you very much for that. There are 2 laws that Mr. Musk and DOGE are ignoring. They are Section 6103 of the Internal Revenue Code and the Privacy Act of 1974. Section 6103, which has been before this committee on numerous occasions, protects the confidentiality of tax returns and return information, including all of the tax return information that is received or collected by the Internal Revenue Service. The Privacy Act of 1974 was designed to provide individual Americans with more control over the government gathering, disseminating, and using our private information. What's happened to the libertarians in the Republican Party who once believed that government was a challenge and that the privacy of American citizens should be protected from the overreach of government? What we have here is an overreach without justification. Why is it necessary in fighting waste, fraud, and abuse to interfere with the personal data of American citizens, every American citizen? The issues that we have before us today are that DOGE has also sought access to what are called omnibus sharing agreements. This is another aspect I've not touched on so far. And these omnibus sharing agreements would let Musk link individual tax data across a whole host of different federal agencies. A federal statute makes it unlawful for the IRS to share taxpayer data with other agencies for reasons unrelated to the administration of our tax system. New York University Tax Law Center experts indicate that such an omnibus information sharing agreement across agencies would not conform with the strict rules of 6103 that govern how and when taxpayer information can be shared. And so again, here is an area that needs to be explored other than through an empty witness chair to find out about the extent of the violation of federal law with this sharing agreement that has been rubber stamped by the administration. And most recently, just last week, Mr. Musk came for more of Americans' private information stored in the child support database that is used to enforce court-ordered child support payments, which is a good thing. But each agency receives tax data that has a detailed data sharing agreement with IRS, and they have to comply with those taxpayer privacy protections when that goes over to the Department of Health and Human Services. Unfortunately, Health and Human Services is now run by the vaccine denier Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And he, not disregarding really those requirements, he gave DOGE exactly what they asked for. It's simply outrageous that Americans' private and personal financial information has not been protected from the prying eyes of an unelected billionaire and his teenage musketeers. At a bare minimum, Congress and the American people need a full accounting of what data has been shared with Musk and DOGE and for what purposes. And despite all the rhetoric on the other side, we have absolutely no explanation as to why that right of Americans for a full accounting is not being provided, why it is being obstructed and blocked by the Republicans. Answers to this resolution of inquiry on behalf of all the Democrats on this committee will provide us with a little of that accounting. Only then can we begin to move forward as a bipartisan majority, as the bipartisan majority did over 50 years ago when there was criminality from another Republican president in the wake of the Watergate scandal, and address the shortcomings of the enforcement of our tax privacy law and begin to restore taxpayer trust in our voluntary tax system. The Republicans basically say they don't know and they don't care what Musk is doing with your personal tax return, your Social Security information, your health data, anything concerning child custody. And by blocking this resolution, they just want to ensure that no questions are asked and no information about this likely violation of multiple federal laws ever becomes public. That's why we should adopt this resolution, and I yield back.
Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word. Thank you. So many things we've said today. We've been here mostly talking past each other on a lot of different things. Earlier it was suggested that we're missing the message of the previous election. And I think the message of the last election was it's the economy, stupid, as it's been every election. And it was pocketbook issues. There was people saying, help us. We don't want to just have an easier time making ends meet. We want to be able to get ahead and give our kids a better future. The message of the last election was not privatize Social Security, make it harder to have security and dignity in retirement. It wasn't cutting access to health care for 70 million people by slashing Medicaid. It wasn't giving up our personal data to an unelected bureaucrat, billionaire, oligarch, so he can profit off of that data and do God knows what else. So I'm proud to join my Democratic colleagues today to demand that the Trump administration and Elon Musk are providing this body, as is our responsibility, accurate information on what they are doing with the data of Americans they are capturing from the Department of Treasury. Elon Musk and his team are unelected and unvetted. The so-called Department of Government Efficiency is accessing private systems laden, they are doing so laden with their own personal conflicts and ethical concerns. They have no business rummaging around taxpayers' private financial data and information. Unfortunately, we're seeing at every turn, DOGE is trying to access not just Treasury information, but information of all the departments that they have with our personal information, including our individual Social Security numbers, our home address, our bank account information, and so much more. Now, I know from personal experience, 20 years ago, I had my identity stolen. We caught it very quickly, likely within hours, and yet it took me years to take care of all of the implications that had. We all get notifications in the mail that this system or that system has been breached and what actions we should be taking. We should be protecting American citizens' information in this committee. And yet what I'm hearing from my colleagues on the other side is talk about fraud, waste, and abuse. We agree. Everyone on this committee says we should be looking for ways to make government more efficient and more effective, looking for ways to put in place systems to catch and punish fraud, waste, and abuse. But we're allowing unelected officials to access personal identity that can give them great power over the American people, and used improperly can cause great damage. The systems at the Department of Treasury contain sensitive, extensive details about all of our individuals' lives. Now, Elon Musk wants you to think that he is a patriot, but he is far from it. He is not interested in keeping that private data safe. In fact, we suspect he is more interested in using that private data to enrich himself. Allowing unvetted and inexperienced personnel to access this system is a recipe for disaster, leaving taxpayers' sensitive information vulnerable, either by DOGE or by external actors. What we're asking today, and I am astonished that my colleagues are not joining us in this on the other side of the aisle, What we are asking for today is that the American people understand and know with confidence what DOGE's access of their personal information and how they are using it. It's that simple. Since my Republican colleagues refuse to apply the normal standards of transparency to DOGE, we are forced to do so with this resolution today. And if I can extend to other things that might have been said, that were said earlier, we did scream out loud and vociferously when people accessed information. My colleagues suggested that employees at the IRS have access to our personal tax records. Some have access to some records when they have a necessary reason to do so. They can't rummage through the system. We had a hearing in this committee talking about that. No one has access to everything over there until last month when Elon Musk and his Doge bros, young people who lack experience, are exuding an overconfidence and believe they know more than the elected officials sitting on this body. They have access to it today. We should all be upset. And I am astonished by the silence, the acquiescence, the submissiveness of my Republican colleagues to let the executive branch to do the responsibilities that should be our responsibility assigned to us in the Constitution, in this committee. And I wish we could join together to ask for this information to protect the American people. I yield back.
Oh, can I have your 4 seconds?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Schneider, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a unanimous consent request to place in the record the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which really elucidates the right of confidentiality and privacy.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for the extra time.
Mr. Gomez. Mr. Horsford.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. I move to strike their last word. To the American people, I want you to hear this. Today, we are voting for transparency in government. There is only one person who's unelected and a bureaucrat who is causing havoc throughout the government. That is Elon Musk and his hackers. Now, my constituents need and want to know who accessed their sensitive data and for what purpose. I want you to know that this inquiry specifically states that within 14 days, the president provide and direct to the Department of the Treasury, to the House of Representatives, all communications related to the access to or the use of the Treasury payment system by DOGE, Elon Musk, or any member of his team. It also calls for the access to or use of confidential tax returns or tax return information by DOGE, Elon Musk, or a member of his team, and any screenshots taken of the data or records in the Treasury payment system by DOGE, Elon Musk, or a member of his team. This is common sense. This resolution of inquiry is simple. We are doing our duty as elected members of Congress. I don't work for Elon Musk, and he wasn't elected to do anything on behalf of the American people. So I'm asking for simple information that should be shared with Congress. Now, to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I want to work with you on government efficiency. There's several of you that we are actually in those efforts involved with. I want to be able to identify ways to make government work for the working people of this country. But there's a way to do it, and this is not it. Chaos only breeds further chaos, and my constituents are scared, they're worried, they're concerned about their personal information being used by Elon Musk and his hackers. From Pahrump to Mesquite, my office has received calls from constituents concerned about their information being stolen, and they have a right to know by whom and for what purpose. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. My constituents deserve to know why an unelected bureaucrat, Elon Musk, who is the richest person in the world, and his hackers are illegally accessing tax data, Social Security information, bank information. Why do they have it, and what is the purpose? That is the purpose of this inquiry. I am defending the rights of my constituents to know what has been accessed, by whom, and for what purpose. I don't understand, for the life of me, how my colleagues on the other side would not support this resolution. I'm here to defend my constituents. That's what I was elected to do. Elon Musk, you were elected to do absolutely nothing. Get your grubby hands off of the data of the people of America and the information that they're entitled to remain confidential. With that, I yield back.
Ms. Van Dyne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Democrats keep criticizing Republicans for not bringing Elon Musk as a witness to speak about DOGE's work. My Democrat colleagues want to bring Mr. Musk in for a witness so badly, why don't they invite him to appear as a witness? Democrats are allowed to invite anyone as a witness who can answer their questions about DOGE. Has anybody actually invited him? Okay, we have not seen any of that. During the Oversight Subcommittee's hearing on February 11th, Democrats invited Nina Olson as a witness. You had an opportunity. You chose Nina Olson as a witness, and you asked her several questions about DOGE having access to taxpayer information. Republicans invited Christine Kochelek, a managing director for financial management insurance team at GAO's office. She was there specifically for the purpose of answering questions related to access to Treasury's payment systems. And when I asked her directly, has any proof been shown about these threats? You know what she said? None. No. And yet we continue to hear all of these unsubstantiated charges being thrown out, even though my colleagues know they are not correct. They are complete lies. Democrats are always able to invite whoever they want for a witness hearing. They just haven't done it. And Democrats have expressed outrage over the access to taxpayer information that DOGE employees have. First off, a few weeks ago, the Treasury Department and the White House signed a memorandum of understanding that prohibits DOGE from accessing personal taxpayer data. They know this, and yet we've spent over an hour and 45 minutes listening to charges that they know, again, are lies. Second, the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration has released data on just how many individuals have already had access to sensitive information within the IRS. As of July 2023, over 91,000 business entitlement access request system users, 91,000, including 5,000 contractors, had access to at least one sensitive IRS system. Where's the outrage? Why are we just now hearing about this? All these unelected bureaucrats that have access to sensitive information, including 5,000 contractors, you're saying shouldn't. And yet, because Elon Musk has unmasked all of this waste, fraud, and abuse, now you're bringing it up. Even worse, TIJTA found that over a dozen contractors with unfavorable background investigations retained their access to at least one sensitive IRS system because the IRS did not take action to suspend or disable the contractors from the IRS system as required. Where was the outrage then? So if Democrats were serious about protecting taxpayer information, they would have raised concerns about this report and articles that ProPublica and the New York Times published using illegally obtained taxpayer information to publish stories attacking President Trump and other Americans who had their data stolen. Instead of raising concerns then, Democrats chose to weaponize the disclosure of taxpayer information, including President Trump's, to attack him and other Americans for political gain. So stop with the gaslighting and protecting the waste, fraud, and abuse that is being uncovered, and stand up for your constituents and protect their financial futures. With that, I yield.
Ms. Plaskett.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a point of parliamentary inquiry?
Or Mr. Yes. You want to?
Point of parliamentary inquiry, then I'll do the strike of the last word.
Okay.
Point of parliamentary inquiry. Is there a mechanism where the committee could compel Mr. Musk to come and testify before the committee? Because we are happy. I think Democrats would be happy to support that motion or that mechanism if the majority is willing to oblige us. But we are happy to do it.
We'll take it under advisement. You're recognized to strike the last word.
All right, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word. So Ways and Means Democrats are demanding answers and fighting to protect taxpayers' privacy and access to their Social Security benefits. Elon Musk DOGE has pushed for access to sensitive systems that hold private data on millions of Americans. These include the essential system the government uses to pay its bills, database that stores tax return and Social Security data used to set and pay Social Security benefits. These databases include highly sensitive information, including taxpayers' Social Security numbers, addresses, income information, debts, and property records. Republicans are letting an unelected billionaire ransack our government. It's not just dangerous, it's potentially illegal. We need to know what information Musk has access and what DOGE has done with people's personal information, especially if Musk tech bros have stolen information for unauthorized purposes. President Trump has made it clear there will be no guardrails or oversight on Elon Musk, and his department and agency heads are being forced to get in line. That's why we have inspector generals to prevent fraud, but Trump has fired them all. If the Trump administration won't hold Musk accountable, Congress must Congress has the power to conduct oversight on the executive branch, and it is our duty to protect taxpayer and Social Security information. That is what Democrats are trying to do today. We have 2 resolutions of inquiry before the committee, and all they do is demand information regarding DOGE's intrusions at Treasury, IRS, and the Social Security Administration. We're asking whether Musk and his team access protected information like Social Security numbers and benefit information, addresses, tax debts, wage records, and bank information. We need to find out what's going on. But we can only do this if our Republican colleagues join us. And that's what we're asking them to do, to join us. Republicans either, in my opinion, either don't want to know what's going on, don't care what's going on, or are too scared of Musk to do anything about it. And trust me, I get it. Musk has a $500 billion baseball bat that he's willing to use electorally to make sure that any of you who step out of line, he puts you back in your place quickly. So I get it. I get why you're scared. I get why you're not protecting the tax information and Social Security information of millions of Americans. I get it. But we need you to have courage. We need you to step up. We need you to actually protect your constituents, because what's going to happen is when Elon Musk does all the damage and he's gone, you will be holding the bag, and then there'll be no one there to protect you. So don't let him bully you guys into not doing your jobs. We need you to do your jobs. And listen, I get it. It's basic math. You have more votes than us. You can vote anything down that you want, but we need you all to step up and protect the American taxpayer. With that, I yield back.
Mr. Swazi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot of back and forth here about a lot of different things. It's hard to figure out what to focus on. I think we all want to try and get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in government. It's a major problem. It's going to require us to work together, less finger pointing. It'd be great if we could get Mr. Musk to come in here and outline different ideas he has for cuts, and then we could vote on it through what's called the rescission process. That would be a great thing if we could, Mr. Chairman, I know you're going to take it under advisement, but it would be great if we could get Mr. Musk to just come here and sit here and lay out the different cuts that he thinks that should be made to the federal government. I think, there's a lot of back and forth here. Mr. Smucker was talking earlier about the deficits. I mean, we just voted yesterday. You guys voted yes, we voted no on a budget with $6.75 trillion in expenses and only $4.9 trillion in revenues. You voted yesterday for a massive deficit increasing budget. In addition, the big, beautiful bill that everybody's talking about is going to increase the federal deficit by even more, $3 trillion, because there's $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, but there's only about $1.5 trillion proposed in expense cuts. And those $1.5 trillion in expense cuts can't be made unless you cut Medicaid. And you say you don't want to cut Medicaid. So that's an additional, even under those rosy scenarios, an additional $3 trillion in deficits. So I don't know what you guys are talking about. You want to cut things, but you won't give us the specifics as to what's being done. Mr. Musk is operating. Ms. Van Dyne talked about the witnesses that were here the other day. I asked each of the witnesses specifically, do you know what Mr. Musk is doing? Do you know if I think you said 100 people are working for him, Lloyd? 100 people are working for Musk, I think you said. But I mean, did they get background checks? Do we know that? Do you know, I'll yield to Mr. Smucker. Do you know if they got background checks? No, you don't know. Nobody knows. We don't know if they got background checks. We don't know what kind of security clearances they have. We don't know what their backgrounds are. I mean, these are simple, basic questions in running a multi-trillion-dollar organization. Are the people that you have, and people hear different names about them, but they're young people that are gamers and hackers and computer experts. We don't know what their backgrounds are. We don't know if they got proper security clearances. We don't know if they have background checks. So we've got a big problem in the federal government. We've got way more in expenses than we have in revenues. It causes deficits. Our deficits are the highest percentage of our GDP that it's been in decades. The proposal, the CR that was passed yesterday increases the deficit. The big, beautiful bill that this group is proposing will dramatically increase the deficit. So you say we have to find expenses to cut. We need to go after waste, fraud, and abuse. Yes, let's do that. But we don't know what the expenses are that they're proposing. They're supposed to.
The committee will come to order. Welcome to today's markup of 2 resolutions of inquiry from committee Democrats. Democrats are attempting to undermine the critical work being done under President Trump to root out waste, fraud, and abuse across the federal government, all in an effort to save taxpayer dollars and make important programs work better, more efficient, and more effective for the American people. My Democrat colleagues claim their concerns are about process and careful vetting, but the truth is that they have never found an ounce of government fat that they're willing to trim. DOGE has a clear mission to end the rampant waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. At the Treasury Department,
it seems like it started over from the beginning.
Not end up in the wrong hands. Surely we can all agree
Let
that
me
terrorists,
let me see
criminals,
if they started this over
fraudsters,
from the beginning.
dead people,
This was
they
his
don't deserve
opening
taxpayer dollars.
statement, I
I'd
believe.
like to remind my colleagues of the
Yeah,
facts.
this
DOGE
was his
employees
opening
are
statement.
government employees. DOGE was authorized by the Senate confirmed Treasury Secretary to access certain Treasury payment systems on a read-only basis.
Yep,
Just last
that's
week,
it.
President Trump
So,
reiterated.
okay, it's starting over again. Let's hear this gentleman one more time for you guys who showed up late. I really liked what these two gentlemen had to say. And then we're going to get out of here. We're going to let you guys hear these two gentlemen who had good points. Remember, this was about access to private information and Social Security. And so you heard what the Republicans had to say, threw a whole lot of red herrings up in the air and deflected. So let me just replay these two gentlemen. And if just in case you didn't hear them, I think it is worth hearing these two gentlemen. Let me get to the beginning of it. Quite a few of these. I was surprised at some of these older guys, but here, let's play this.
Of the privacy of just about every person in America. Musk has accessed and is attempting to access the personal and confidential information of our fellow citizens without our knowing the full extent of what data he's gotten to, what he's copied, how the data is or will be used by him, and the names, clearance levels, and the training of the individuals who access the data. That's the kind of facts that we seek today, not to slow any legitimate effort to reduce whatever waste, fraud, and abuse they can find, though we have yet to see a single case of fraud referred for prosecution anywhere, because fraud is a new term used by this administration to simply mean anything they don't like the reasonable administration of the Social Security and Internal Revenue System, like corrupt, which is applied to anyone who has the courage to stand up to this administration. What we have is an extreme breach of privacy. The resolution, which I am offering on behalf of every Democratic member of this committee, simply asks for documents relating to DOGE's access to and usage of, first, the Treasury payment systems, second, the confidential taxpayer information protected by federal law, and third, the screenshots taken of Treasury payment systems data by a member of DOGE. Tell me how any of that slows a legitimate investigation. No, it doesn't.
I'm going to stop it right there. There's going to be a black gentleman that expounds on that, the screenshot issue, and say that he's going to say that these screenshots of our private information that were taken by these DOGE people was shared with the Proud Boys. You remember the Proud Boys stand down but stand by? They got pardoned after they stood up. You remember them? Okay.
Allow a little accountability. It allows the public to know how much damage they've already incurred. This resolution, of course, would be unnecessary had this committee shown the slightest interest, the very slightest interest in protecting privacy and demanding even a smidgen of accountability for DOGE. 6 weeks ago, Speaker Johnson committed to a hearing before our committee on DOGE, but he obviously had not received permission from his boss, Donald Trump, to do that. At the oversight hearing, neither Musk nor anyone from DOGE or the administration showed up to answer a single question. And you're right, a witness testified she had no evidence of any wrongdoing here because she had no evidence of anything about this and was not associated with DOGE or the administration. And of course, other than a few words of praise from Musk and Republican plans to declare his birthday a national holiday and carve his face onto Mount Rushmore, the majority has offered nothing but silence as Mr. Trump followed Mr. Musk's directive to fire more veterans than any president in American history and continue to seek highly sensitive private information. One would expect that Republicans who want a legitimate investigation of waste, fraud, and abuse would not leave that witness chair empty this morning. It is empty. It has remained empty, as has their commitment to any responsible oversight over this administration. This committee is supposed to be a guardian of sensitive taxpayer information. Instead, it has appeased Mr. Musk and given him access to anything he desires. I yield back.
Additional members wish to strike the last word. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a little mystified to hear you say that this is all about, quote, stuff that does nothing to serve the American people.
Oh, let me
I don't
move forward
believe,
a little bit.
that's what this is about at all. This is about transparency.
I don't want
The
Mr.
stuff
Thompson.
that you
I
claim
want this
doesn't serve
guy
the American
right
people, we're concerned.
A sad morning. Very sad morning. When this committee, the oldest and most continuous in the Congress, neglects its responsibility and essentially holds this hearing today to block any further discussion. The men and women on this committee are good people. They're honest and caring people. And that's why I do not understand why you would relegate this committee to no longer being of significance and resort to saying you will do whatever Elon Musk and Donald Trump tell you to do. Where's the independence of the committee? Where's the legislature? We're an equal branch of government. And you start off with a blather, and yet look at the empty seats here. Where's Elon Musk? I'm sure he's a genius and is a very credible person because of the wealth he's accumulated. But that does not put him above the law or the responsibility to come before this committee in this Congress. If he's so great, if these plans and all the fraud and abuse that he found are so evident, why isn't he here explaining it? You know why. Because he's out to privatize Social Security. He's been on television the last couple of days talking exactly about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and what he intends to do. Privatize it. The American people, some of them may have been born at night, but not last night. People are aware of this. Every single one of your districts, all the money that comes in monthly, and you have not done, you as a Congress, have not done anything in more than 54 years. And now you have someone coming in to privatize a system, something you have longed to do going back to 1982, because Elon Musk thinks that this is the best thing to do. President Trump has called Social Security a scam. Elon Musk, as chairman, as Mr. Neal said, called it a Ponzi scheme. Ask that of the people in your district. Ask that, Mr. Smith, of the more than 198,000 people in your district who rely on Social Security, and you won't even let the person who's planning to privatize it, who's telling the big lie in front of everyone, in bold as he possibly can, saying, this is what we're going to do. The Congress is in our back pocket. We don't even have to come before them and testify because we control the House, we control the Senate, and we control the presidency. And it's exactly what you tell us to do, Mr. Musk and Mr. President. It doesn't matter to our constituents. It doesn't matter how much money they are not going to receive. We're not even going to tell them the truth about what's going to happen to them. And every single one of these districts where they're being shut down and their personnel, and as Mr. Neal said, then after you cut and eliminate the people, say the agency isn't responding accordingly. No other agency operates for under less than 1%. With that, they administer to over 70 million people in the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and children. Shame! Shame! Can't bring people in front of this body? If he's right, if they're so good, if they're so just, why aren't they here telling the American people about it? They're not, because you know the truth. It's about privatization. I yield back.
No time to yield. Mr. Arrington?
Okay.
I can hardly sit here. I was hoping to.
I
just let-
apologize. I apologize for cutting that off. I was trying to drop the link. If anybody have any comments that they want to share, you're more than welcome to hit the link. But I just felt that it was important for us to be informed, not hear these emotional pleas and no facts and details. I think that is important that we actually know the facts. So from the elected officials. So I don't see the point in just not doing their job for the people who voted them in office and hiding their heads in the sand and refusing to go out to town hall meetings because they're being told exactly how their constituents feel about their poor performance, these Republicans. I don't see how they think that they're protecting their seats by not being by being threatened by Elon Musk, saying if they don't do exactly what they're told to do, that he will pay somebody to primary them in their next election. But if you continue to do what you're told to do, the people are going to see you doing what you were told to do and fucking vote you out anyway. Anybody who comes up and got $5 behind them to run against you is gonna win. So I don't understand what the fuck do they think they, excuse me, I don't understand what the fuck they think they are gaining by being sycophants and idiots. If anybody want to come up, now's your chance. Please like, share this video, and we're at the point where something is going to have to be done. There is a petition that is going around. Let me see if I can find it and give you guys the link. They said that it has over 250,000 signatures, and it's called Impeach Trump Again. Let me see if I can find it. And also Al Green is who was censured, who spoke up at that it wasn't that joint session that Trump spoke as. It wasn't a remember Al Green, who stood up with the cane? He said that he is striking up articles for impeachment. Let me see if I can find. I just heard about it after my live today. Let me see if I can find it again. Okay, here it is. Here's the information on that. I'm going to drop you the link. Let me see. It says, hold on. I hate these big ass ads that be blocking everything. Multiple abuses of power. Critics argue it's time to impeach Trump again. Okay. More than 250,000 have signed a petition to support an impeachment investigation of President Donald Trump, who was twice impeached during his first term. Impeach Trump Again campaign is being led by the advocacy group of Free Speech for People. This president has already committed multiple abuses of power since assuming the presidency, and the farmers designed the Constitution to ensure that we would not have to have a monarch or a tyrant government. This nation, says the group of this nation, says the group president, John Boniface. When we see the abuse of power, we have to invoke this impeachment clause. Let me see. That's where I saw it at this morning on Democracy Now! She had him on. And now they're talking about Al Green. Al Green impeachment is a remedy for a runaway president who believes that there are no guardrails, who believes that the Supreme Court has placed him above the law, and who is now very close to a point where he will not honor court orders. When he does that, he told Miss Goodman that he's at the point where he will become a dictator. We are this close. And when he goes over that line, that second, that scintilla of a second, he will become a dictator, and we will be under a dictatorship. I refuse to wait until that happens before I act. So I will act in defense of the Constitution and for the people of this country. Okay, let me see. Let me see if they have a link to the actual petition. Okay, it's called impeachtrumpagain.org. So I'll drop the link in the chat. I found the link. And I will also paste the link in the description box. And let's, I'm just going to be real with you guys, because I see a lot of the independent news media giving disclaimers out to their people, because they can strike at anyone that they choose to strike at. And we know that these big corporations are in bed with this administration. So there actually may be some backlash. Let's not forget the dude who was arrested in New York City, who is now waiting to be deported, who is a citizen of he has a permanent residency via a green card in the United States, and they cannot say any crime that he committed, but he only protested for the Palestinians. Now they're saying that he is in bed with Hamas, but they have brought up no charges against him. They have stated no facts connecting him, saying how they think this, and they were holding him for deportation, and it has been blocked, and they were going to give him no due process. He's a naturalized American citizen. So, like many of the YouTube people who are reporting news that you may not have heard, go through my lives since this, basically since the inauguration. I have showed many links, and now for the past 2 weeks or so, I make sure that I post any links that I use in my video, because I want you guys to see this for yourself. And much of this stuff is not being discussed or talked about in our for-profit media. So that's the link. Did I drop the link yet? Yes, this is the link. Do with it what you choose. But something's going to have to give, because what's going on is crazy. So, if you can't have free speech in America about the lives of supporting the lives of Palestinians, and it being described by your government as being part of a Hamas hate group, what else would they do and categorize your freedoms, your constitutional rights, if they don't like what you're saying? Who else will be bought up because of their constitutional freedom of speech being framed as something dangerous? Let's not forget that when 45, 47 was out there in the front lawn of the White House with those Teslas, somebody posed a question, not even a question, a statement. He said, some people say that people who are protesting at Tesla should be bought up on domestic terrorism. What do you think about that? And 45, 47, what did he say? You're right. I may do that because what they're doing is horrible. And that's exactly what it is. He agreed. The simple fact that people were protesting at Tesla, he agreed with the person who posed that some people, I don't know who these some people are, but he definitely agreed with him. If you missed my video this morning, it's on there. And let's not forget what he said. Let me see, where is it? Okay. To the Republicans, conservatives, and all great Americans, Elon Musk is putting it all on the line in order to help our nation, and he is doing a fantastic job. But the radical left lunatics, as they often do, are trying to illegally and convolutedly boycott Tesla. So when is it illegal to boycott Tesla? It is legal to boycott anything that you don't want to spend your money on. But let's understand, he wrote in his post, because Tesla's stock had dropped to below what it was when he was elected, that people are doing illegal boycotts against Tesla. So if he can call you just boycotting Tesla and then try to prop up Tesla about how great it is out here reading notes on what the car offers and all of this, and try to ensure the nation, a nation of people who the owner of Tesla is taking their jobs for absolutely no reason, saving the government absolutely nothing. He got the notes and the specs of the cars that are 112, 100,000, 114, 114, 100,000, 108,000, and one for 54,000. And there's a note that says you can get into one for as little as $299. So he's promoting this car company of the man who spent how much to get him into office? Well, 200 and something million to prop him up as a candidate. And this is what he gets back when his stocks fall. That right there is illegal. So let's be, and so anybody, you heard what the Congress people said. Anybody who disagrees with him and calls him out on it, they are the people who have the problem. And the Republicans sit there with their fingers, their hands folded, and say absolutely nothing. A lot of this stuff that we have been seeing in this presidency and a lot of court rulings has upheld, even up into the Supreme Court has upheld that a lot of this stuff that is being done by Musk and his muskrats is actually unconstitutional. And they have to release funds and all of this type of stuff. So we're not gonna pretend like we not seeing what we seeing. So that's all I have for you guys. I appreciate you guys being here. I saw this on, and I didn't even think this many people would show up, but I definitely appreciate you guys participating in educating yourself. Thank you, Z Sarah. I appreciate your support. Letitia James is going to be on the Midas Touch this evening. Thank you for telling me, Bush baby. I definitely got to take that. Taking people's jobs, but want people to buy his Tesla. And they asked him, do you think that you coming out here buying the Tesla, that it will increase his stocks? You know what he said? I hope so. I hope so. Okay, so if this is not a self-dealing, I don't know what is. Trump said yesterday that violence against Tesla is domestic terrorism. What? Yeah, that's what he said. He said that yesterday. They said that people who are doing this, should they be somebody posed it to him, and he said, yes, that's exactly right, and that's what they're doing. And I'm going to look into that. There's cameras everywhere, and we know who a lot of these people are. That's what he said. And we know who a lot of these people are, and they're going to be handled. So there's reports of a lot of Tesla charging stations being burnt up and all of this type of stuff. Hey, does he not have insurance for this? So, okay, that's par for the course of doing business. This is the richest man in the world. Surely he's insured for when this type of thing happened. I mean, hey, you stick your neck out here and come out doing all these sick hail arm movements and stuff and don't expect no retribution. You sit up and talk about people like they trash when you take their jobs and take their jobs via email and tell them don't bother to come back to work tomorrow, and lie that it's because their performance, and you don't even know what their fucking job is. Some of them who are controlling our nuclear arsenal, that you tell them that they don't have a job tomorrow, then you got to turn around and hire them back, but you not fired for being inefficient. You getting all of your money from defense contractors for this SpaceX, and your last 2 rockets blew up in the sky. The first one that blew up, you didn't even notify anybody that you were shooting that rocket, and they had to close airport, divert planes, all your rocket trash spewing all over the ocean. And exactly what this is our tax dollars. So are you investigating that? Is anybody investigating why this man is getting all our tax dollars for his SpaceX for shit that he can't pull off? Why isn't his money being defunded? Because obviously he cannot do and since we're paying for it, exactly why did what was that rocket that went up last week supposed to be doing? Are we just shooting up rockets for entertainment of the mega rich on the American people's dime? I'm just curious, because we are playing. These are defense contracts. The defense has a budget of over $850 billion, but he has not. He's going to Social Security to find savings, but he's not going to the place where he get his money from. They said that the average person, the average senior who lives off of Social Security is living off of $65 a day. Meanwhile, the welfare queen, which is Elon Musk, who gets all these government contracts, he's living off of $18 million a day from his contracts that he has gotten. And where is he going to cut money? From Social Security. Okay, thank you, Playmaker. I appreciate, I'm glad that you learned something. And if you guys missed any of this broadcast, I just wanted to share that with you guys. So it's a lot going on. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you guys have a great remainder of your day, and stay woke. That's all I got. All right. Bye-bye.